Hey, and welcome back to Miss Kitty's Wild West Adventures. Today's tale starts with a photograph, grainy, black and white, and chilling. 4 men hang from the rafters in a barn in Ada, Oklahoma, their faces slack, their boots swaying. One of them is James Deacon Jim Miller, Bible in hand, shotgun killer by trade. They say he once claimed to have killed 51 men. By the end of this video, you might just believe it. James Miller was born in Arkansas in 1861 and raised in Texas by his mother and grandparents. His early years are murky, but what is known will make your hair stand on end. When he was just a boy, his grandparents were mysteriously murdered, shot while they slept. Whispers in town pinned the deed on young Jim, but nothing was ever proven. But the shadow followed him into adulthood. As a man, Miller styled himself as a pillar of the community. Methodist, clean living, and church-going. They called him Deacon Jim, but behind the hymns and the handshakes was a cold-blooded killer. He murdered his own brother-in-law, John Coop, while Coop was sleeping. Miller was sentenced to life, then had it overturned on a technicality. This was the first of many times Miller would beat the system. By the 1890s, Miller had taken up law enforcement in Pecos, Texas, but only as a cover. He was a hired gun who charged between $150 and $2,000 to kill men, often at the request of feuding ranchers or corrupt politicians. What made him nearly unstoppable? Under his long black frock coat, Miller wore a custom-made steel breastplate. In today's terms, we call that body armor. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. In more than one occasion, it saved Miller's life. No one wanted Miller dead more than George Bud Frazier, sheriff of Reeves County. Frazier had tangled with Miller over law enforcement corruption and murder-for-hire schemes, and the feud quickly escalated. In one confrontation, Frazier ambushed Miller, shooting him multiple times at close range. But Miller, thanks to the steel vest, stood up and walked away. Frazier was stunned, and the public started whispering that Miller couldn't be killed. Another time, Frazier tried again, this time with a Winchester. No, not that Winchester, that one. Same result, Miller's chest plate absorbed all the damage. Frazier was eventually forced out of office, while Miller continued to rise in the rank and in the body count. Finally, Miller got the upper hand. In 1896, he shot Bud Frazier in the head at the Toyo train station, right in front of witnesses. He was arrested, he stood trial, and once again, he was acquitted. By the turn of the century, Miller had made a dark career in contract killing. Among his victims were sheriffs, political rivals, and even members of his own extended family. By the way, he was also known as Miller the Killer or Killin' Miller. He preferred the double-barrel shotgun and often ambushed his victims at close range. No warning, no mercy, just a puff of smoke and a Bible verse later. But the job that would finally seal his fate was the murder of Gus Bobbitt, a former deputy U.S. Marshal. Bobbitt was gunned down near his ranch in Ada, Oklahoma in 1909. The killer fired both barrels of a shotgun from ambush. Bobbitt lived just long enough to name Jim Miller as the killer. Miller was arrested along with his accomplices, Jesse West, Joe Allen, and D.B. Burrell. But the people of Ada had watched him wiggle out of justice far too many times. Witnesses had a way of disappearing. Jurors were afraid, and judges were hesitant. The townsfolk didn't want to wait for a verdict this time. In the early hours of April 19, 1909, a group of about 40 masked citizens stormed the jail, dragged Miller and his 3 partners to a livery barn, and strung up 4 ropes from the rafters. Before the hanging, Miller made 3 final requests. He asked to wear his long black frock coat, his grim trademark, but the mob denied that request for obvious reasons. He then requested that his diamond ring be given to his wife, which was granted. Lastly, he asked to wear his black hat to his execution, which the mob also granted. Standing stoically on the box, Miller reportedly declared, "Let the record show I've killed 41 men, let her rip," before stepping off the box all by himself. Moments later, all 4 men were hanged, and the barn fell silent. As the noose tightened and the barn fell silent, Jim Miller's reign of terror came to an end. A rope's end, that is. Not in a courtroom, but in a dark barn, under the weight served by the people of town. No trial, no verdict, no opportunity for Miller to get away. But justice never is simple, is it? So here's the question. If you were in that mob in Ada, staring up at the man who claimed to have killed 51 men, would you have pulled the rope or just walked away? Let me know in the comments below. And if this tale gave you chills, well then I tip my black hat to this story, and make sure you're subscribed to Miss Kitty's Wild West Adventures, because I got a lot more coming down the horn. Until next time, I'll catch you on down the trail.